In this video, we will explore the correct way to handle application programming interface, also known as API requests in React using the useEffect hook. This is a guide to mastering the patterns for making API calls using the useEffect hook. Here's an example of a basic useEffect API call. First, import React useState and useEffect from React. Then, create a functional component called userProfile. Next, initialize a state variable called user using the useState hook with an initial value of null. Call the useEffect hook, passing in an empty dependency array to run only once on component mount. Inside the useEffect, use the fetch API to make a GET request to the /API/user endpoint. Use the .then method to handle the response, parsing it as JSON. Use another .then method to set the user state with the retrieved data. This code fetches user data from an API endpoint when the component mounts and updates the user state with the received data. The basic approach to making API calls with useEffect can lead to several problems. The first problem is no error handling. Fetch failures can cause silent errors. The second problem is no loading states. Users may see empty content while waiting for the data. The third problem is memory leaks. Setting the state after a component unmounts can cause issues. Finally, race conditions can occur. Multiple requests can cause data conflicts. To improve our API calls, let's add loading and error states. First, initialize a state variable called user using the useState hook with an initial value of null. Next, create a loading state variable and set its initial value to true. Then, create an error state variable and set its initial value to null. Inside the useEffect, set loading to true before the fetch request. Use the fetch API to make a GET request to the /API/user endpoint. Use the .then method to handle the response, parsing it as JSON. Use another .then method to set the user state with the retrieved data. Use the .catch method to catch any errors and set the error state with the error message. Use the .finally method to set loading to false, regardless of success or failure. This code enhances the previous example by adding loading and error states to handle API call outcomes. To prevent memory leaks and race conditions, let's use Cleanup and AbortController. Inside the useEffect, create a new AbortController instance. Pass the AbortController signal to the fetch options. In the .catch block, check if the error name is abort error. If it is not, then set the error state with the error message. Return a cleanup function that calls controller.abort to cancel the fetch request when the component unmounts or when the effect is retriggered. This ensures that any ongoing fetch requests are canceled when the component is unmounted or the effect is rerun, preventing potential memory leaks and race conditions. Here is a complete implementation of making API calls with useEffect. Inside the useEffect, create a new AbortController instance. Create an asynchronous function called fetchUser. Inside the try block, set loading to true. Use the fetch API to make a GET request to the /API/user endpoint, passing the AbortController signal in the options. Check if the response is OK. If it is not, then throw a new error with the message failed to fetch. Parse the response data as JSON. Set the user state with the retrieved data. In the catch block, check if the error name is not abort error. If it is not, then set the error state with the error message. In the finally block, set loading to false. Call the fetchUser function. Return a cleanup function that calls controller.abort to cancel the fetch request when the component unmounts or when the effect is retriggered. For a cleaner and more reusable approach, you can create a custom hook. Create a function called useFetch that takes a URL as an argument. Inside the hook, create state variables for data loading and error. Implement the complete fetch logic inside a useEffect similar to the previous example. Return the data, loading, and error states from the hook. To use the hook, call useFetch with the API endpoint URL. This encapsulates the API call logic into a reusable hook, making your components cleaner and easier to manage. Here is a summary of the best practices for making API calls with useEffect. Always handle errors using try-catch blocks and proper error states. Show loading states to keep users informed during API calls. Use the AbortController for cleanup to prevent memory leaks and race conditions. Create custom hooks to reuse API logic across components. By following these practices, you can create more robust and maintainable React applications. If you like this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Visit CodeLucky.com for more such useful content.